Am I the asshole for walking around my house in lingerie? My husband and I got married recently and moved into our new home. The neighborhood is nice and quiet, and the neighbors are really nice except for this family that lives next to us. Although we just got back from our honeymoon, I still wear lingerie sometimes and walk around in them when I wake up in the morning and make breakfast. The other day I was in the kitchen preparing coffee while my husband was out and heard a knock on the door. I grabbed my robe and opened the door and found the next door neighbor. He said his 7-year-old kid's window is facing our living room and his daughter uses binoculars and saw me wearing inappropriate clothes while walking in the living room. I was taken aback, and it turns out the daughter uses her binoculars to watch the yard, but she peeped through our large windows. I also want to say we do have curtains. He said it wasn't cool and his daughter just saw something she can't unsee and that is not appropriate. He requested that I be considerate when it comes to clothing or lack thereof, but I thought that was just ridiculous since this is my house. I argued that this is my home and I get to wear whatever I want, and also his daughter has no business peeping. He said she's a kid and meant no harm and was just curious. I said he was gonna have to leave, and he said he would ensure that I don't expose his daughter to stuff like that in the future. I told my husband and he agreed with our neighbors, saying I should just leave the laundry in the room where it belongs and learn to put decent clothes on. Also that I shouldn't have spoke to the neighbor like that. Am I the asshole for making a joke about my pregnant sister-in-law, or is my brother overreacting? I, 32 male, am child-free, and I always thought my little brother would be too, but he actually really likes kids. I always thought my sister-in-law must be behind him feeling like that, but he says he's the only one who really wants them, but I don't know if I believe that honestly. She's pregnant with their second child, and they already have a 1-year-old. They were over to celebrate her dad's birthday, and my mom told sister-in-law she was sure she was exhausted to sit down and rest and not help with the dishes. I fake pouted and jokingly asked why she offered the broodmare rest, but not her son who's been helping her all day. I thought my mom would laugh, but she was silent, and my brother asked me what the F I just said about his wife. My brother asked me what the hell I just said about his wife. I laughed it off and said to take it easy and it was just a joke, but he demanded I explain what was funny about calling his wife a broodmare. I just want to point out, y'all, I have no idea what that word means. By that point, I was irritated and said they're the ones who thought popping out kids together was a smart idea, and at this point, that's what she essentially was. He called me a disgusting, immature asshole for how I spoke about his wife. My dad told me to leave, and my mom refuses to answer any calls or texts other than ones to tell me she was disappointed. I thought they were overreacting, but my friends are saying I was being an asshole. So, am I?
I own a vape shop. We're a small business with only 12 employees. One of my employees, Peggy, was supposed to open yesterday. I recently promoted Peggy to manager after 2 solid years of good work as a cashier. I really thought that she could handle the responsibility. So I wake up 3 hours after the place should have been open, and I have 22 notifications on the store Facebook page. Customers have been trying to come to the shop, but the store is closed. Employees are showing up to work, but they're locked out. I call Peggy and get no response. I text her and same thing. So I go in and open the store. An hour before her shift was supposed to be over, she calls me back. I ask her if she's okay, and she says she needed to take a mental health day and do some self-care. I'm still pretty pissed at this point, but I'm trying to be understanding, as I know how important mental health can be. So I ask her why she didn't call me as soon as she knew that she needed the day off. Her response, I didn't have enough spoons in my drawer for that. Frankly, I don't know what that means, but it seems to me like she's saying that she cannot be trusted to handle the responsibility of opening the store in the morning. So I told her that she has 2 choices. Either go back to her old position with her old pay, or I fire her completely. She's calling me all sorts of ists now and says that I'm discriminating against her due to her poor mental health and her gender. None of this would have been a problem if she simply took 2 minutes to call out. I would have gotten up and opened the store on time. But this no-call, no-show shit is not the way to run a successful business. I think I might be the asshole here because I am taking away her promotion over something she really had no control over. But at the same time, she really could have called me. Am I the asshole for telling an employee that she can choose between demotion or termination?
Storytime about how a cop intimidated me into going on a date with him. This all happened 6 years ago when I had just turned 18. I had saved up a lot of money to buy a car. When I finally got my new car, I felt so independent. My dad would help me pay for the insurance and the gas, and I just had to take care of the car and make sure I drove safely. And I was a really safe driver. I never sped or made any illegal turns. In fact, I was scared of other people driving, so I was extra careful. Even though I was 18, my parents still had a curfew on me. I come from a Latin family, and they are very strict, so I followed the rules. Around this time, my parents started letting me date. I was really excited because there was this boy in high school who always wanted to date me, but I could never say yes. I told him we were finally able to date, and he got really excited. We started going to the beach and hanging out with friends. But this meant that I would have to drive long distances to the beach and back. And my biggest fear was to get pulled over. I don't know, for some reason I thought that was like the worst thing in the entire world. On my way to the beach one day, I get pulled over by this cop. I knew I wasn't speeding and I hadn't done anything illegal. I pull over and he asks me for my documents. Then he just stares at me for 30 seconds without saying anything. The first thing out of his mouth is, "Wow, you're very pretty." Then he asked me if I was single. I instantly froze up and didn't even know what to say to him. Keep in mind, I had just turned 18. I felt totally vulnerable and exposed. He put his hand on my car door and leaned down towards me. This guy was really intimidating. Then he asked me a bunch of questions. Was I single again? Was I dating anyone? Was I still in high school? Did I have other friends that were pretty like me? I would laugh off his questions because I didn't even know how to respond. I was in total shock and didn't know what to do. Then he says, "Seriously though, are you single?" And since I technically was, I said yes. His demeanor totally changed. He became more aggressive. Then he said, "What do you think if I go pick you up tonight for dinner?" He points to my license and says, "You live right by me." My knees started to shake. Finally, I said, "I'm actually seeing someone." Then he just stares at my entire body up and down. He stroked my hair and asked me if I was scared. I said no. He could clearly see my hand shaking though. He knew that I was scared. He finally backed off and handed me my documents. He goes to his car and leaves me waiting for 13 minutes. By the way, my friends and the guy that I was seeing were waiting for me at the beach. That's when I start getting phone calls from him. I decided to answer and tell him what was going on. That's when he said to me to not get out of the car and to just say no to anything he said. That's when the cop bangs on my window. He asked me who I was talking to on the phone. I hung up the phone and told the cop that I was talking to my dad. I finally got the courage to ask him if I did anything wrong. He said no, but he saw a pretty girl, so he had to pull her over. He fully expected me to laugh at that. He finally handed me my license back and asked me when we were gonna go on that date. Again, he crouched down and was right in my face. I said we could go on a date that night. I gave him a wrong phone number. Of course, I didn't show up to the date. I told my parents and we went to the nearest police station. We made a complaint, but nothing ever came of it. They essentially told him to leave me alone. Remember, he knows where I live. I feel like he probably watches and stalks me. What should I do?
Husband 28 male asked me 27 female for a separation. We both agree the end goal is to reconcile. It's a very, very long story, but basically, like the title says, my husband of 2 years has asked for a separation. We have a young daughter. She was not planned, but we love her to pieces, who is turning 2 soon. We were together for 6+ years before I got pregnant with her. We got engaged and married, and then I had her. I guess he feels like we rushed into things, but I feel like we were going to end up married either way. This just kind of put us on the fast track. He recently got a job in his hometown. I was under the impression I was making this move with him. I went on a business trip, and over the trip I found out he has rented a house without telling me and is moving out. He plans to see my daughter every other weekend. I have to now move back in with my parents and try to pull my shit together and make a life here. We had occasional arguments, but never anything I thought was earth-shattering. Certainly not something I thought was worth divorcing over. He has mental health issues. I fiercely believe he is bipolar, but he refuses help. He's a great dad and my best friend. He says this is a separation to become a better father and husband. But I am terrified he will decide to make it permanent. He says he loves me and wants to be with me in the end, but things have to change in our relationship. I want to believe him, but I'm so scared and confused. There is obviously a ton of other details I have to leave out for the sake of time, but basically he is starting a new life and job, which we thought we were coming along for. Until a couple of days ago, he decided to let me know that while I was on my work trip, he felt happier alone when I was gone and it was just him and our daughter. Yet he is still saying he wants to be with me. I am obviously beyond devastated and I just want some advice. He is saying he wants to separate for now, but is hoping to reconcile once he gets his shit together. Has anyone here separated and got back together? I've read that sometimes separating can be the best thing for a marriage. No previous infidelity on my side or his, by the way. Also, I do not think anyone else is in the picture. He is not the type to cheat. I asked him several times and he swears up and down that this separation is because he's unhappy with himself and it has nothing to do with someone else. He also says I'm a great partner. He couldn't find anyone better for him than me, etc. I just don't understand why he's doing this and destroying the family and life we have. I think he's making a huge mistake. My 29 male, soon-to-be ex-husband, seems to feel entitled to another chance with me, 28 female. My husband and I have been together almost 8 years, married for 2.5 of those. Last May, we separated seemingly overnight. He left me and our toddler and moved back to his hometown. There was never a solid reason given, just that he felt we should never have gotten married. In July, he changed his tune and wanted to be a family again. He was still at his job in his hometown, so I decided I would ride it out at my job in a different city for a couple of months to build my resume and then start looking for other jobs in his hometown. After 6 months of a brutal commute, taking care of our child during the week by myself and driving to his hometown every weekend, interviewing, basically bending over backwards, I finally landed a great job in December. A week before I was to move into the new house we were buying together and start my new job, I found out he had been having an affair. He begged and pleaded for me to stay with him, said he'd break off all contact, and I foolishly agreed to give him another chance. 2 days later, while I was back in the different city and completed my last week of work at my old job, he unblocked her on everything and liked her pictures on Instagram. I was devastated. On top of that shit show, he kicked me out the house we were supposed to move in together, and I had to find a new place to live 2 days before starting my new position. We have lived separately ever since. He has said and done so many hateful things in this time period, and said so many times that he wants a divorce that I've lost count. Up until a month ago, he was still maintaining contact with her. I saw her car at his house, took pictures for the lawyer, etc., and he admitted he had been talking with her still. I stopped doing the pick me dance about a month ago and stopped reaching out to him besides contact about our child. Now he has suddenly changed his tune and is desperate to get me back and will do anything. He has unfollowed her on everything, unliked all her pictures, tells me not to give up on our family. I've moved on. I'm not interested in pursuing another relationship with him. He's hurt me deeply, and I feel like I've been fucked over by him so many times that I've lost count. How can I tell him there isn't a chance without sounding like a completely heartless person? I still want to be able to maintain a strong co-parenting relationship with him, so I am friendly to him, but he seems to take that as I want him back. I've relayed to him my feelings, but they fall on deaf ears. He says he will never stop trying to get our family back together and does not want a divorce. I do. Does anyone have any advice?
Am I the asshole for breaking my promise to my husband and letting others meet our newborn son before him? I, female 25, moved away from my town and to my husband's, male 32, hometown after we got married. The main reason is because he suffers from a medical chronic condition and needs to be near his family. I was pregnant with our first baby and was nearing my due date when my husband had to travel out of town for work for 2 weeks. Because of this, he couldn't be with me in the delivery room, which wasn't expected. I wanted to ask my mom to come be with me, but he assured me that his family are there to help and I shouldn't be worried. He then made me promise that I don't let anyone see our son for the first time in person before him, besides his stepmom, who was supposed to be there for me, and I agreed. His stepmom was with me when I went into labor, but she stayed away since she is the type that doesn't get too involved and keeps her distance. She's also the, quote, I don't do diapers type, meaning she doesn't offer help with the baby and I shouldn't be expecting it. She dropped me and my son off at home and asked that I only call if there's an emergency. I felt helpless. I asked my neighbor for a few favors, but needed real help with the baby, so I called my mom and asked if she could come help me, and she drove 4 hours to come stay with me. She helped out tremendously, and I am so grateful for that. My husband stayed away for a few more days, then came home. Once he saw my mom, he got super upset, repeatedly saying I broke the promise that I made him by not letting others meet our son before him, and I explained that I needed help, and he brought up his stepmom, but I replied that she dropped me off and left. That's it. He said it wasn't about mom since it could have been anybody else, but it was about me disrespecting his wishes and breaking the promise I made. He reminded me that he's also the parent and he gets a say too. At this point, I said he was overreacting, but he replied that I forever tainted the memory of his son's birth and broke his trust and proved to him that my word, quote, is worth shit now. He keeps acting cold towards me, calling me a selfish promise breaker and expecting me to make it up to him. He wanted an apology, but I haven't given him that yet. Am I the asshole? Husband, 24 male, is withholding my 23 female satisfaction until I lose weight. Husband and I have been married for about 9 months after dating for 2 years. We waited until marriage for mostly due to his religious beliefs. We were both excited for our honeymoon, but unfortunately things took a turn when he ended up unhappy with how I looked naked. Now, keep in mind, I am 5'6", and at the time was 135 pounds. A very healthy weight. Although I was not medically overweight, he said my stomach and thighs were too chunky and requested I lose 20 pounds before we have again. I tend to wear very flattering clothes, so I guess my issues weren't noticeable when dressed. In the meantime, he has been requesting pretty much every day with, of course, no reciprocity of any kind or even affection. Since then, I've been working so hard to lose weight, but my husband still isn't happy enough with my appearance and accuses me of not trying hard enough. In the meantime, I'm hungry and grumpy from losing weight. If not for my husband, I would much rather be at my previous healthy weight and be able to enjoy a burger or a cupcake now and then. I'm afraid I'm falling out of love with him after being treated this way. I know no marriage is perfect, but it's so heartbreaking to be treated like an object that is never quite pretty or shapely enough. And if it's like this, less than a year in, it's probably not going to get better, right? I feel like I'm fading away and losing myself to expectations I can never really meet.
This is bad.
This is fucking terrible.
This is a bad one. Wow. There's no solution except to just be done with this thing. It'll keep going, I feel like. I feel like you could even get to that point, but you shouldn't even have to. This is dumb. You were happy before.
So edit/update. Something just snapped as I was reading all of these incredibly supportive responses, and only then did I realize how far my self-esteem has fallen, that I felt unworthy of love over not being underweight. Called my mom crying and told her everything. She's on her way to get me now, and I can stay with her as long as needed. Husband is still at work, won't be home for a couple of hours, and I'm packing my most critical items in the meantime. We're going to order a pizza. Pizza!
Yes.
Like all exclamations. I don't want to think too much beyond getting some space for a little bit, but we'll be looking into a lawyer to see if I can get an annulment or at least a quick divorce. It means everything to know I will have my family behind me, and I really appreciate you all as well.
Yeah, it feels like she probably feels like she just got out of a nightmare. It feels like when you wake up and you're like, oh.
Found out that my female 22 boyfriend, male 23, who recently graduated with his master's, has been cyberbullying a friend for not going to college. My boyfriend, Eric, graduated with his master's in the spring and had a party to celebrate in the summer. He's hoping to be a teacher after attaining his master's degree. And I graduated with my bachelor's recently. We've been dating for almost 3 years after meeting in college. But when I stumbled upon something that I brought to his attention, he made me out to be the enemy for being untrustworthy and not on his side. Eric is involved in a few roleplay groups on Twitter and has a few accounts that portray various media characters. He's also into D&D, but writing stories for the roleplay group is his hobby, and while I'm not part of the group, I follow the accounts and sometimes keep up with his storylines. However, he made an account that roleplayed one of our friends, an account that I wasn't supposed to find, but ended up stumbling upon it because one of his other accounts followed it. Long story short, there was a guy named Evan who is in his D&D group, and Evan would often invite his younger brother, Todd, to play along. I've played D&D with the group a few times, and Todd would often bring it to life by drawing characters and whatever my boyfriend would imagine, and I always thought it was cool. Evan came from a military family where both of his parents served, but he went to college. Todd wanted to serve following his high school graduation, but Eric would try to convince him to go to school instead and believe that an education would be better in the long term. However, Todd still wanted to go into the service upon graduation, so he would talk to Evan to get him on his side. But Evan reinforced that the choice is ultimately Todd's and that there are benefits to both college and military, so neither of them would be a bad choice. However, when an injury would prevent him from being able to join the service, Eric believed that he would opt of college like Evan, but he decided to do an internship through a connection his father had instead, and that would lead to what happened recently. Eric made a Twitter that impersonated Todd, but unlike his roleplay accounts, he had actually made it look like Todd's actual account and used it to make fun of him. He downloaded photos of Todd and used them to make memes that degraded him for not going to college, some calling himself stupid or wanting hand-me-downs, to name a few. And he also made posts about Evan and his family, which led me to wanting to talk to him. When I told him what I saw, I asked why he thought it was appropriate to do that, to which he said that everyone sucks up to military families and that they get a pass for being a word we won't say, and that Todd got what he deserved with his injury. He also said that they are poor enough to probably get free college and that it proves that he was right all along. But when I told him that I couldn't believe what he was saying, he said, "What do you expect?" and that he's going to be a teacher who obviously prioritizes education. But he didn't stop there. He also said that I was being inconsiderate because he has ADHD and uses Twitter to vent his feelings. But I told him that's not an excuse for what he did and that he should take it down. But he refused and told me to mind my own business. We've argued before, but he's never told me off like this until then, and said that venting on Twitter helps him be a better person in real life because it drains his frustration. When he talks to Evan at D&D, he'll speak his opinion, but never as rudely as I found on Twitter. But finding this account was like finding a different side of him, and after I found it, he became really defensive and told me that he didn't want me following his roleplay accounts anymore. But I've been reconsidering our relationship after this because he thinks it's right and is still upset at me while still making new posts. I'm considering breaking things off, but I'm afraid that he'd do something similar to me after finding his new method of venting. At the same time, I don't care if he does it to me, but I want to ask if anyone's ever dealt with anything similar and how to handle distancing from someone like him who uses social media to do what he did. Like he said that he went to the account of Todd's family to get photos from there too. And I'm afraid that he'll harass the accounts of people close to me, which is why I'm also thinking about safeguarding myself from that too. Aside from what I'm thinking, is there anything else I should consider before telling him my plans to make sure I am safe?
I met Ariel and her father when I was 14 years old, and I had just started my freshman year at my first high school. My mom had met this seemingly normal, great, nice guy, and I'm going to preface this by saying, obviously my mother was a single mom and she was single for a lot of years, okay? So keep that in mind. She was single for years and years and years. I hardly saw my mom dating, especially when we moved here to Colorado, because my mom was very focused on her kids, on her career, on her money. That is where I get my focus from and my determination from, is from my mother. So when I heard that she had met this guy and that she was gonna date, it was crazy, you guys. Like, I had never seen my mom go out on dates. Like, I had never, kind of seen that part of her. And I was really, really happy for her. And it was just me and her here. And more than anything, I just wanted to see my mom happy. So I was super excited for her, and she was getting ready for these dates and everything, and she had met this guy. I feel like I've named him before, but I want to name him something, I don't know, just in case we have more in-depth conversations about him in the future. So let's give him a permanent name. We'll name him Phil, okay? Let's do Phil. Okay. My mom met Phil and I was 14, and they started going on dates and stuff. And because, they each had 2 daughters, they felt like it was important that myself and Ariel meet. So after dating, I would say for probably about 2 months, my mom came home and told me that she would like me to meet his daughter, and I was all about that life. Like, whatever you want, Mom, whatever makes you happy. I just want to, I'm your homie, I got you, and, I'll do anything to make sure that this works out. I just want you to be happy. And I felt like, this could be my mom's moment to find her Prince Charming and to find the person that she was meant to be with, because God, I was tired of seeing my mom alone. I was tired of seeing my mom by herself. I was tired of seeing her heartbroken. I was tired of it. When you have a single parent like that, it really affects you, because, they come to all of your events by themselves. They deal with everything by themselves. They're parenting by themselves. And as you get older, you start realizing that. You look around and all your friends got both parents and have help. And my mom didn't. Plus, she had her full-time job. She had moved to this new state. My brother was in college in Texas. You know what I'm saying? So she had a lot going on, and I just really wanted something or someone to make her happy. We're gonna fast forward. Obviously, you guys know about the introduction, the movies, all that kind of good stuff. So on the surface, Phil seemed like the perfect guy, honestly, you guys. And I feel like I have a really good radar for like people's intentions and their true selves, and he even flew under my radar, okay? He seemed like he was the nicest, sweetest guy. He had the greatest sense of humor. He could make my mom laugh and make her forget about all of her struggle and her past and her pain and all of that. And he went to church. He seemed like a godly man. And he seemed like a good dad. You know, you guys have to realize that for me, with somebody that didn't have a father in her life, for me to see this man raising a daughter by himself was like, wow, like you are rare. You are like, you know, something that I've never seen before. You're like a unicorn, dude. Like I've never seen anybody like you before in my life. So it made me have a special kind of respect for him from jump, because he was doing this on his own. That was one of the biggest things that you guys had questions about. Why would your mom make such a big decision so fast? You know, why would she not consider you? Blah, 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 blah. In my mom's mind, it was just easier for us to go ahead and move in together so that Ariel and I just had one school. And that was the original idea, okay? All of the other things and all of the other moves were not planned, obviously, but my mom was like, you know, I would much rather move you now before you make your friends and get involved in this school. And, you know, I feel like I found the man that I was looking for. And you guys, Phil was like the bee's knees, okay? We moved in with Ariel and Phil. It was definitely a transition. It was definitely kind of hard to mesh our lives together, because I had always just had my mom. So like I was not used to talking to anybody else, like as far as a parent. And I was already so much older, you guys. Like I was already in high school. So this man by no means was my dad. And I reminded him of that all the time. Like, you can be my friend, you can be my homie, but you're not my dad. Like, I have not needed a father all this time. Trust and believe me, I don't need one now. So don't come out your face, don't get out your lane, because you're not my dad. I don't care who you are. And so, you know, me being a teenager, I did come at him a little rough in that regard, because I didn't know how to do that. You know, when you don't have a parent for so many years, you know, and I didn't trust men, because men can leave. Like, you know, like that was like my mindset because of how I was raised and the way that I had to be raised, right? Here's how I leveled it out in my head. I made a deal in my head, like, I don't really care about getting close to him. I don't need a dad. I don't need a father figure. I don't need all that. But what I do need is for you to do your job. And your job is to make my mother happy, because that is your place. That is why you're here. And, you know, I'll handle your crazy daughter as long as you do your job. I'll do my job, you do your job. My mom, when she got with him, you know, she saw it as, I will finally have a father figure for Nikki, because that was so important to her. And, you know, nobody plans on being a single parent. Like, nobody plans that, okay? So obviously, you know, she was thinking about it as, I can be a mother to this little girl that doesn't have one, and he can be a father to my little girl that doesn't have one. So like, they were trying to mesh a broken family to make us whole. And I completely understand that. So I knew where my mom was coming from, but I just wasn't as receptive. Now Ariel jumped right in. Ariel started getting really, really close to my mom, which was kind of really, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, that was really hard for me, because I had never had to share my mom except for like with my brother, but my brother was like in another state in college, so it had been me and my mom. So for like this other girl to come in, and she started calling my mom really fast, and like getting really close to my mom, and it just kind of hit me in a weird place. And it took a lot of getting used to, because I was like, ooh, bitch, like, you know, that is my mother. But I had to understand, you know, she didn't have a mom or whatever. Like, she had a mom, but like, she just wasn't close to her mother. And, you know, if my mom could help somebody, and, you know, and us be like a whole family, who am I to stand in between that, you know? So it was really hard for me to stand back and, you know, let my mom be, you know, someone's girlfriend, and let my mom be someone else's mom. And so, you know, that was a little bit hard for me, right? I feel like everything was fine between Phil and I, and it was just kind of like very cordial and very like, he would joke around with me, and I was never the type to have an attitude with him. I was never the type to disrespect him, because I just wanted him to make my mom happy. And, you know, I never had anything against him ever. So like, we had a really good relationship on the surface. And the first time that things got kind of weird was Ariel had decided to call my mom. And, you know, that's her deal. that's on her. She feels like she's ready for that. And so I remember one day, Phil came to me and asked me if I would like to call him dad. And I was honest with him and said, no, I don't want to call you dad. I don't want to call anybody in this life dad. Like, it's just not something that I really feel like I need, and it's just not something that I'm comfortable with. And I feel like that was the first time that he was like, oh, like, I think he took offense to it. And, you know, he had to understand it that, you know, I'm 14 years old, man. I'm not 5. So, like, you know, I can't just come out the woodwork all of a sudden and be like calling somebody dad. Like, I've never called anybody dad a day in my life. What the fuck? So I remember that was kind of like a turning point, and he took it to heart. And then my mom talked to me and she was like, you don't feel like, you know, you can call him dad? And I was like, Mom, no. Like, I'm not there yet. I don't know if I ever will be there. I'm not trying to be that one to like be splitting up the family, but just because Ariel went ahead and called you mom doesn't mean that I'm ready to do the same. So my mom, you know, she tried to talk to me and just make sure that I wasn't like having volatile bad feelings towards Phil, and I didn't. He just wasn't my dad. My mom was like the strong parent behind Ariel and I, and my mom was always very strict, very organized, and she always had us on a routine and on a schedule. And my mom was the glue that kept all of us on track and kept all of us together, right? So he kind of took the place of like the fun parent, and he was the one that kind of was a little bit more understanding about dating, about boys, about like whatever. And my mom and him used to kind of bump heads in that regard, because my mom was like, you cannot be telling these young girls that that's okay, and it's not. Like, we have to go about this the right way. Like, we have to make sure that they're responsible and that they know and blah blah blah, right? During the dating process, while she was dating Phil, she couldn't really put all of her attention on us. But once they moved in together and we started having our everyday lives, then her, you know, observant side came right back, and she was all over Ariel and I about school, about our grades, about where we were going, who we were hanging out with, because now she's got not one teenage girl, but another girl that's going into her teenage years. Because when she met Ariel, Ariel was 12, but Ariel was already acting like she was 17. So my mom was facing something completely different than what she had been facing with me, because I didn't try my mom like that. I really didn't. Like, I would do like stupid shit like talk to boys at my school, but never anything outside of that. Like, I didn't give them my phone number, and like, I wasn't trying to die, y'all. I really wasn't. And my mom was one of the first people to start peeping Ariel's hoism before even I did. Like, she was like all over that, right? And it was equal. When I tell you it was equal, my mom would do her weekly round, and my mother would go through my room and go through my things, and go through Ariel's room and go through her things. Whatever she did, you know, to me to make sure that I wasn't doing anything I wasn't supposed to be, she did to Ariel. Everything was very equal. My mom was very conscious of that, because she never wanted Ariel to feel any different. And Ariel just didn't understand, girl, my mom didn't just change, okay? She's been doing this since I turned into a teenager. Like, this is genuinely who she is as a parent, and it's coming from a place of love. So Ariel kind of was having a little bit of an issue with my mom being so invasive and playing the role as a mother, right? Ariel and I started bumping heads because I saw that Ariel was kind of being a little bit rude to my mom anytime my mom was being a mom. And, you know, you can't sit up here and call my mom mom and want a mom and all this other shit, and you don't want her to be that. Like, a mom isn't just there to kiss your boo-boos and to make you feel good. A mom is there to make sure that you're not doing stupid shit, and you don't want to get caught, but that doesn't mean that you need to be talking to my mother crazy. So this is when things kind of got a little messy and cloudy, okay? So my mom started realizing that Ariel had hoism going on. She would bring it to Phil. And Phil, at first, he was really receptive, and he told my mom, you know what? I knew about this, or yes, I knew about that situation. I just don't know what to do. I can't be too invasive. I'm her dad. I'm a male. You know, I can't do all that. You do it. So like, he was giving my mom that place and said, in my mind, you are her mother, just like I'm going to treat Nikki like I am her dad. She doesn't have to call me her dad, but I'm going to love her and treat her like I'm her dad. So like, they were really trying to treat us girls as their own. So Phil gave my mom the go ahead to go full force as Ariel's mother. My mom started very slow, and my mom was starting to, I remember my mom was just trying to be very understanding. And so it started out with just talking to Ariel and just being like, hey, you know your worth, you know, you're worth something, you're somebody, you matter. All of the things that she had taught me all my life. You know, do you need to talk to me about anything? What's going on? You know, what are you feeling? You know, you need to know that I'm there for you. I was there for all of these conversations because my mom would come into our room and talk to Ariel for hours and like give her that attention that Ariel was craving so badly. So Ariel would kind of like blow smoke up my mom's ass. No, I'm fine, and I know, and no, I don't think that I'm worth anything, and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, my mom was working overtime to make sure that Ariel knew you are somebody, you're worth something, you matter, you're loved, you're appreciated. Don't do all of this. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. Like, I'm here if you ever need me, if you ever have any questions. You know, I love you. And so my mom, you know, and it was, there I am, you know, having to watch my mom be a mom to somebody else. It was so weird. Like, it really was. So here we go. My mom starts taking her place as Ariel's mother and as my mother. And that was per Phil's request and per his approval. And he told her, I need a mother for my daughter, and I would really appreciate it if you did that, because you did an amazing job with Nikki, and I trust you completely, and I love you, and if we want this to work, we have to treat the girls like they are our own. Like, there can't be any differences. So my mom was a hard mom on me, so therefore she's going to be a hard mom on anybody else that she's being a mother to. As time went on, my mom started noticing that things were not getting better with Ariel. They were in fact getting worse. My mom had caught Ariel with boys in the house before. She had caught her talking on the phone with boys before. She found notes from boys inside of Ariel's backpack. She started becoming privy to what was going on with Ariel and would then relay that information to Phil. At first, Phil was pretty receptive and would kind of work with my mom to discipline Ariel, and that's when they started getting Ariel into counseling, and they started taking her for therapy, and they started talking to her a lot, and they started paying a lot of attention to her. And I kind of, you know, not took the back seat, but I willingly took the back seat and kind of, you know, let Ariel have that moment, because I knew that she was going through something. She was going through a lot. And, you know what, however my parents wanted to deal with that, that's how they wanted to deal with it. So they got the help of the church, and they got family counseling. And there were times that we all had to go in there as a family to go to like family counseling to speak with Ariel and to talk about, you know, the transition and the meshing of the family. So my parents were trying to do things the right way. A lot of you guys also had questions about, you know, why would your mom punish you about, you know, what Ariel was doing? Like, why did that affect what she allowed you to do? Let me explain. Ariel was very, very messy, and she kind of developed a sense of resentment for me because she kept getting in trouble for the shit that she was doing. I did not try my mother like that. I really did not. And I had a lot more respect for my mother than she did for my mom or her dad. So when my mother told me to stop it, I stopped it. When my mother told her to stop it, that was an option. And when her dad told her to stop it, that was completely an option. So when there were times when she would like get in trouble, and she would like try to throw me under the bus and be like, well, Nikki talks to this boy at school. You guys, I remember there was this one time when she told our parents that, and it was legit John, my gay friend. And so here's my parents like, oh, you're doing the same thing. And I was like, he's gay. Like, he's not even, yes, I walked home with him after school because he rides my bus, but he's gay. Like, I can literally bring him here to meet you. He's gay. Like, I'm not doing nothing. And so I would look at her like, you know that, and you're like trying to drag me into this because you don't want to be in trouble by yourself when you're the one who keeps messing up. So she would like try to get me in trouble too. So it got to the point where like my mom was like trying not to tear her hair out and was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's lying. I don't know. So you know what? It's over. It's done. Neither one of y'all can go. Neither one of y'all. And so like, then it kind of, it started affecting me as well. And then, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I was perfect. I just didn't try shit as far as Ariel did. Like, I would have like my boyfriends at school, but like I never brought them to my house. I never had them like calling me like late at night, and I didn't start like testing the boundaries until I was like a junior in high school. But like my freshman and sophomore year, girl, no. Then, I had to start hiding things from Ariel. If I did have a boyfriend at school, a kid that would like carry my books for me or whatever at school, and Ariel found out, oh, she was gonna, tuck that away real quick, and the next time she got in trouble, then she'd tell my parents, well, Nikki's doing it too, when Nikki's doing this and that. And it wasn't, not sorry girl, it's very different for me to have my school boyfriend walk me to my class or walk me out to my buses in comparison to you having two dudes in our house when I'm not here, or me hearing about all the nasty shit that you're doing to these boys at my high school. Two very different things. So like, I was trying not to beat her ass. Like, why are you making it like this? Like, I can't even like go to homecoming or like have like a very innocent date because of you, because I genuinely would not do whatever it is that you're doing. Like, I don't do shit like that. It's just not in my nature to do that. But you sitting up here trying to make it seem very terrible, and now I'm afraid to move. I'm afraid to do anything or try anything because you're already testing their patience, right? Let's fast forward to around the time that we went to New York. By this time, it was like almost like Ariel was a lost cause for me, for my mom, for Phil, and like everybody was kind of like tired of it and tired of her. So we all had to keep a close eye on her. We could not let her be by herself for too long. My mom legit had to like basically have all of us as her babysitters to make sure that Ariel didn't hurt herself inadvertently the way that she ended up hurting herself inadvertently. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my last videos. It got to a point where when Ariel got in trouble, Phil just started getting really tired of it. It got to a point where like Phil knew what was going on, but he got tired of parenting. He got tired of repeating himself. He got tired of paying for counseling. He got tired of it, and he got to the point where he was like, just let her do it. Like, just, she gonna do it anyway, just let her do it. And my mom is not a quitter. She's just not that person. And she was like, mothers don't quit. You're not understanding. I'm not gonna sit here and quit on her. I don't care if she's listening or not. It is our responsibility to not quit on our kids. What you mean, right? So all of a sudden, my mom and Phil start fighting, and they would fight about how to handle Ariel because he just kind of got to the point where he just wanted to wash his hands of it, and he just got tired of dealing with it, and he genuinely was like, just fucking let her do it. Just let her do whatever she's gonna do because I don't have time for this. I'm trying to enjoy my life. I'm trying to enjoy you. I want to go on vacation. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I don't feel like dealing with this anymore. She's obviously not going to stop. So like they had different mindsets about how to handle this situation. Phil wasn't reacting to it as well as he should have. And instead of handling Ariel, he was getting mad at my mom for calling her out. And it started becoming very bad fights, and he was extremely emotionally abusive to my mother and would start calling her names and yelling at her in front of me and Ariel. And you guys, I had such a hard time seeing that, and I had such a hard time with seeing my mother be abused like that, and like seeing like a man get in her face and shit. So like I would get in between it, and I would get in his face, and it started turning into a bigger thing, and it started separating our family. And then I wanted to beat her ass because look at what you're doing. Like, all my mom is trying to do is make sure that you don't hurt yourself, dumbass. And you over here, your dad's even tired of dealing with you because you don't listen. And now he's abusing my mom and calling her every name in the book because she's just trying to care about you. So it got to a point where, yeah, when I would find out when Ariel was doing stupid shit like in New York and peeing in the bed and everything, it came to a point where I had to ask myself, do I want my mom to fight? Do I want to see that? Do I want to hear that? Do I want to hear them fight all day and all night long? In that story in New York, there were a few things that I mentioned. Like, he, had to do things his way. If he wanted to walk all over New York and we didn't, it didn't matter. We were going to do what he was going to do. And if my mom said otherwise, they were gonna fight. So like half the time my mom was suppressing her feelings because she didn't want to fight. Also in that story, I mentioned that he had taken Ariel by himself, so my mom took me by herself, and that was because my mother tried to say something about like the heat and us walking too long or whatever. He snapped at her, and my mom was like, I'm done with it. Like, I'm done with you treating me like that. Nikki and I are gonna go. So like, she and I took off, and he and Ariel took off. And on purpose, he went and bought Ariel all of these things, you guys. So when we were in New York, Phil had taken Ariel by himself, and my mom took me by myself. And me and my mom had a great time. I'm not even gonna bullshit y'all. Like, we had an amazing time. That was like the best part of New York for me, was when I went off with my mom. And when she and I were by ourselves, it just went back to normal, and she was my best friend. But at this time, skinny jeans were like all the rage. Like, they were brand new. Before that, it was just like bell bottoms and like flare jeans and stuff like that. But skinny jeans were like just coming into play, okay? And Ariel already had a bad habit of wearing super tight jeans. Like, they looked like they were painted on. So when my mom started noticing that, my mom started getting jeans that fit Ariel correctly, and Ariel could not stand it. Ariel had gone to my mom and was like, hey mom, can I get some skinny jeans? And my mom was like, no, not right now. Like, unless you're willing to get the size that you actually wear and that I approve, no. And so Ariel was like, psh, what? No, I don't want to do that. And so my mom was like, okay, well, I guess you're not going to get skinny jeans. And so Ariel got mad and went to Phil or whatever. And so when they went off by themselves, this man, just to spite my mother, went and got her a shit ton of skinny jeans, y'all. And like, she barely fit into them. Like, barely fit into them. Even I was like, holy shit. Like, they were so tight on her, and like, they were like a size too small, and she would do that on purpose. And you know, he just kind of, he would do shit like that to like basically show my mom who's boss in regards to his daughter. My mom saw those skinny jeans and looked over at Phil like, for real, like, you just gonna undermine me like that? And Phil was like, whatever, that's what she wanted. And so they were already pissing each other off, and Phil was already on one. So that is why when Ariel peed the bed, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear them fighting, because what seems like an accident to a guy, to a man, like, oh, she just peed the bed, would not have seemed like an accident to my mother. My mother is very smart, and she is very observant. She knew, she had already observed that Ariel had been peeing a lot on the trip. She had already observed that Ariel had been drinking a lot on the trip. She would have put all of the pieces together and been like, Phil, this ain't normal, there's something wrong. She probably has a UTI, I'm a woman, I know. And then Phil would have been like, no, it ain't all that. You just want to believe the worst about her, and blah, 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 as usual. And then they would have ended up fighting. So that is why I did not say anything, and I went through what I went through, and I chose to do that because I did not want my mother fighting. I will protect my mom to the ends of the earth. I will go through whatever it is that I need to go through, because my mom went through hell to bring me into this world and to keep me safe. And the least I could do was make sure that she was safe. And there was nothing that we could say or do with this little girl to make her listen. And that was evident by this time. So that is why I made the decisions that I made, because I had already seen my mom before she even met Phil. My brother and I have seen it. We have seen my mom suffer and struggle and fight all her life. And so it was very hard for me to see her go through yet another struggle in this life. When they would fight, Phil would say really fucked up shit to my mom. You're not her mother. You need to understand that. You are not her mother. And he would say that in front of Ariel. And there's Ariel standing behind him just looking at my mom up and down like, yeah, you ain't my mom. And so my mom was like, okay, so on Monday you want me to be her mom, but on Tuesday you don't want me to be like you. I'm not a yo-yo. Either I'm her mother or I'm not. You can't sit up here and tell me that I'm her mother whenever you don't feel like dealing with her, but then when you just want to let shit go, then all of a sudden I'm not her mother. So like, it started turning into this huge thing. My mom to this day, she'll like hear my story times and be like, why didn't you tell me? Like, why didn't you tell me? And when I finally told her the truth, she cried, and she was like, I didn't even realize that, but you're right. Like we would fight and he would be really mean, and I'm so sorry that you had to see that. And it's, you know, it's not her fault. Like she just, you know, as humans, we tend to get into these relationships sometimes and we forget who we are and what we're worth. And my mom was just trying to be happy. She was just trying to find happiness after all those years of being by herself. And, you know, sometimes the wrong person can come into your life and make you forget who the hell you are. And that is why I have this platform, and that is why I talk about the things that I talk about, because I don't want you to be the next person. And it might happen because we're human and we want to believe the best out of people, and we don't want to focus on the worst part of people. And sometimes you are going to make that mistake, and you're going to meet somebody that says something terrible to you or hurts your feelings, and then they say I'm sorry and they seem really genuine, and then you give them another chance and another chance and another chance and another chance. And you know, I believe in second chances. I just don't believe in umpteenth chances. So because of what my mother went through, my tolerance for shit like that is very low. I will not allow anybody to disrespect me. I will not allow anybody to continuously make me feel bad about myself or continuously put me down ever in my life. I don't care how much it hurts me, because you will waste your time, and time is so valuable. And so this was a really hard thing for me to talk about, and that is why, you know, I do one of these in front of my mom, like, don't talk about her. Don't do that. I would take a bullet for my mother, as I'm sure you would. And so if you sat there and you thought about it and you said, hey, if I tell about this, my mom is going to get yelled at. My mom is going to get called names. My mom is going to be in an argument. My mom is going to be abused.
Hi guys, thank you for watching. I love you guys so much. Please like and subscribe to see more great videos. See you again.